Hey, this is Pat Ricard, aka Project Pat, and you're listening to the Baltimore Beatdown Podcast, the best Ravens podcast on the planet.
That's pretty incredible. In fact, it's la-marvelous.
Thank you, guys.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown Podcast. It is Friday, September 25th, recording this on Thursday, September 24th. For anyone watching live, my name is Jake Luke. I'm joined by Spencer Schultz, and it's the first of what are probably going to be a few rivalry weeks here in the NFL for the Ravens.
I don't know. Can't really call it a rivalry when you haven't beat the Chiefs in 4 years.
Look at this guy, all of a sudden making the turn. I love it.
Yeah, you can't really call it a rivalry. Let's see. When was the last time the Ravens beat the Chiefs? I believe Jimmy Clausen lost, and that was 2015.
They lost.
2015. I can't recall if they won one in 2016 or 2017.
2012
if
might
they
be
played.
The last time when the Chiefs were like 2-14.
They did play in the playoffs. I recall them beating the crap out of the Chiefs when they had Dwayne Bowe and that team back in, that was like 2010. But it's been a while, I think. So if the Ravens win this game, it officially becomes a rivalry in my eyes.
I think they beat them in 2014. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let's see. Ravens, Chiefs, 2014, 2012, 2015. Yeah, I don't think they've beat them in a long time.
Okay. Yeah, they haven't played them all that much. The last 3 years, weirdly, they've played them all 3 years, counting this one, I guess. So maybe the NFL
2012 was the last time. 2012.
Yeah, they were 2-14. They picked Eric Fisher first overall the following draft. So yeah, it has been a while since they got that dub. It's more of a one-sided. Ravens fans maybe see it as a rivalry, which I do talk about with our guest here. And yeah, Chiefs fans maybe not so much, but if the Ravens can get this thing done, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it feels like the Ravens have the pieces up front and in the secondary. I mean, last year the Ravens walked out of Kansas City with a 5-point loss with a terrible Maurice Kennedy, Anthony Averett as kind of the cornerback 2-3, and they didn't have Marcus Peters. They hadn't even acquired Josh Bynes and LJ Fort yet. The Chiefs ran all over them to daylight, able to do whatever they wanted underneath some of those things. So it became out of control. The Chiefs had a 24-6 halftime lead. Didn't go the same way as it did in 2018, where the Ravens really kind of stuck it to the Chiefs a little bit, pressured Pat Mahomes 40 times, hit him, I believe, 18 times total. And the Chiefs were bailed out by that unbelievable 4th and 9 play that I fully still blame on Eric Weddle. So different feel last year. The Ravens were able to come back a little bit. Everyone says the Ravens can't play from behind, but 24-6 at halftime turned into 33-28. And the Ravens had them on third down there. And that Andy Reid, kind of heartbreaking double screen ended up getting a first down. The Ravens, if they were able to get a stop there, would have had the ball with no timeouts and about 50 seconds left. So a chance to push them at the end of the game there. But a lot of people don't remember it that way for some reason. I guess they kind of tuned out after halftime, saw the Chiefs had a big lead. So I think that the Ravens and the Chiefs play some tough, fun games. It's going to be a pinnacle game, according to ESPN. This is the first time that two teams on a regular season win streak of 8 games or more have met since 1979. And it's happening on Monday night after a fantastic Monday night game this week. Such a fun game to watch, the Las Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints. So this is probably the biggest game of the regular season for the Ravens, especially early on.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of weird that it's coming in week 3 in that sense. It did feel like people were going to have it circled on their calendars. It's going back to when the schedule came out, which was right in the heart of COVID. It's like, yeah, this is a week 3 game. Feels like it probably could have been maybe mid-season at the very earliest, but they went ahead and made this the marquee Monday Night Football matchup for week 3. So that's at least something. And of course, the one time the Ravens get a Monday Night Football game in Baltimore, no fans will be in attendance.
The irony is heavy, and It's funny. You have to look at it that it's funny. Harbaugh is pointed out to that hey, it's 2020. This is just a little tiny sample of what we've been dealing with for everybody, and it just figures that not even 5,000 people could be there, 2,000 people could be there, something like that, so that somebody gets to experience it and can kind of give that Baltimore game day primetime experience, because it is a special one. The Ravens play so well, only with one loss under John Harbaugh in the regular season in primetime games.
Absolutely. And this is going to be every bit the heavyweight matchup that people think it's going to be. And in light of that, we did want to get an extensive preview. So we've got an interview coming at the end of the show between me and Carrington Harrison from CBS Sports Kansas City. He sat down with me for about 20 minutes to preview this one. And before we jump into that, we wanted to do a little bit of mailbag. It's been a long time since we opened the old mailbag, so figured we'd shoot that out into the ether and see what we came back with. Got some on Twitter, got some on Instagram. It's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's get into it. As we do have an interview on the back end of this episode, we'll try and stay a little bit efficient. Joe Boken JC off of Instagram comes in and says, have the Ravens lost faith in Ben Powers? And what is the Baltimore Beatdown podcast drink of choice? Have the Ravens lost faith in Ben Powers? I don't think they've lost faith yet. I think he's still developing, and I think they see a role for him eventually here with, them trying to seek solutions. And I feel like he would come in case of injury, and I feel like he is capable of playing at at least an average level. And we don't know exactly why the Ravens elected to go the way that they did, but they did. And now we see Tyree Phillips out there mixing it up, picking up blocking, picking up stunts, using his length in the run game. Lost a couple reps, but I think for some reason his struggle has been blown out of proportion, and I don't think he's struggled all that much. The Ravens just kind of look frantic at times. They play really fast. Lamar Jackson obviously is really fast, and it's difficult to block for him. But Ravens offensive line has not been called for holding, I believe. I believe the NFL is through a 2-week low in holding calls as well. I saw from Ian Rappaport, if I recall correctly. So I think the Ravens offensive line is doing a solid job, and Powers might not just have that size. It seems like they really want to be able to crash off that right side of the line. And my drink of choice is, I don't know. I like IPAs and I like tequila. Those are my go-tos.
For me, I am a whiskey boy when it comes to liquor. I really don't touch liquor too often.
Yeah, you're a huge beer guy. We're both big seltzer guys too. Beer, seltzer.
It's very seasonally dependent. So during the summer, I do like the seltzers and sort of the lighter, maybe not lighter necessarily by volume or anything, but lighter
flavor
IPAs. But yeah, I do like IPAs. I like a little bit of flavor in the summer. Getting heavily into fall beer season, so the kid is going into the Shipyard Pumpkin Ales right now. Those are pretty darn good, and a lot of different IPAs. Also a big Guinness guy. So even before they made their U.S. headquarters here in Baltimore, the only other brewery in the world outside of St. James Gate in Dublin, always been a big Guinness guy. So the kid likes him a nice pint of Guinness, and it's going to be that's more of my winter drink of choice. So I go little fall beer IPA, type of thing with the fall, obviously. Summer, a little fruitier IPA and seltzers, and winter Guinness boy liquor whiskey.
Love to hear it. Moving on, we have a couple interesting questions from our favorite Nico Cantalupo. Hey, I'm walking over here. Nico asks, what is the biggest thing that we need to execute on, the Ravens need to execute on to beat the Chiefs? In my opinion, it is third down efficiency and red zone efficiency. The Chiefs have allowed 5 of 6 opponents' drives in the red zone to result in a touchdown. That is very low in the league. It's a small sample size, but have converted 6 of their 9 opportunities to go into the end zone. And that is going to be a big key. The other one is not letting up deep shots on defense. It's the backbreaker. The Chiefs were basically smothered by the Chargers. Chargers dropped a lot into coverage. They have a great 4-man rush, definitely better than the Ravens 4-man rush. So the Ravens might not have that luxury. The Ravens will probably try to create pressure by overloading one side, but not actually blitzing, only sending 4 defenders, 3 of which to 2 gaps or one side of the offensive line. And that way it appears that they're blitzing. They're not. And if you go back to 2018 and recall what Patrick Mahomes said about the Ravens, he said that they threw looks at him that he'd never seen. We saw Chuck Clark nab a pick in his first career start in that game when Mahomes had no clue what he was looking at, rolls to his left a little bit, starts to drift, and just lobbed up a meatball to about 15, 20 yards downfield. And Chuck Clark it was to Chuck Clark with no one around. So Mahomes obviously picked up on some things last year. The Ravens didn't have the defensive personnel, but now they do. They have Marcus Peters. They have Marlon Humphrey. They have Jimmy Smith. They have Chuck Clark. I think Deshaun Elliott gets tested in this one heavily. But what I was getting at is that the Chargers smothered Mahomes, and he just makes that incredible 50-some yard touchdown, or 50-some yard. Yeah, it was a touchdown throw, right? Hill rolled into the end zone, and he was in
Oh, yeah, against the Chargers?
Yes.
Yeah, he rolled out. He had two rushers in front of him, and of course, with that stupid arm of his, he just launched it up there. Hill caught it with two defenders, basically, I wouldn't say draped on him, but they were pretty much step for step, and he rolled on in.
Right. Hill had one foot of separation, like one step of separation, and it was right on him. So those are going to happen eventually. Harbaugh was talking about how the Chiefs play well from behind. They're going to get a shot if they're playing from behind eventually. It's just a matter of being in the right place and limiting it as opposed to letting him be untouched. We saw Mecole Hardman in the Ravens matchup in 2019 just run a seam right up the seam, a go, and 78-yard touchdown, 76-yard touchdown, something like that. Relatively untouched, blown coverage assignments. So not having blown coverage assignments is imperative. And those are some of the keys of the game. Of course, the turnover battle, as always, especially in games like this. The Ravens have 1 turnover so far, and they forced 5. They lead the NFL in turnovers, and they've had the least amount of turnovers. So they're doing well there. And those are the things that are going to end up establishing who wins this football game. If the Ravens can score in the red zone, if the Ravens can sustain drives on third down, keep the Chiefs off the field, and whoever wins turnover battles, those are the keys to the game for me.
I like those technical answers. I'll give you a little bit less of a technical one, and that's just to stay patient. So this is kind of an interesting one where Tom Brady always gives an anecdote about playing in a Super Bowl. And when he was younger, he kind of allowed the emotion of it to just wash over him, and he spent the entire day just like basically wallowing in nerves and working himself up. And he learned as he got older that, and he played in more of them, that you really have to like stay patient, keep everything in front of you, and just like basically keep a cool head, and that'll allow you to perform better in the game. I think this obviously doesn't have the weight of a Super Bowl, but it's a pretty big game. So the Ravens can't allow themselves to get keyed up and get out of the things that they need to do, which, as far as staying patient from a technical perspective, I think it means sticking to the things that are going to work for you, which for me, I think rushing up the middle, the Chiefs have shown that they can be exploited a little bit in that sense. In that first game, David Johnson broke one against them. In the game last week, you had guys like Eckler and some of the other Chargers running backs breaking big runs up the middle. And then, like you mentioned, not letting the big plays break open behind you on defense, which they really only let happen once, the Chargers, and it cost them the entire game. So you just have to stay patient if you're the Ravens.
Absolutely. And then Nico added on, how is this third matchup different from the first two? Which is such a good question to go kind of meta and just think about it that way. The Chiefs are a better coached football team. They execute better. Their offensive play calling, the way that they execute their plays is cleaner, more efficient. They're just in sync as a team much more. Their defense has Chris Jones, has Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, of course, as well. Not a ton of really, ballers other than that right now. Bashad Breeland, their top corner out. So they do have an inside pressure and an outside pressure player. They have a pretty good pass rush overall. Of course, one of the better, if not top pass rushes in the NFL. But their back seven is not, killing anyone right now. They do have Tyrann Mathieu. He is a great player. That's not up for debate. But other than that, on the actual perimeter, nothing crazy impressive. Their linebacking core is relatively average with Willie Gay, who's still really inexperienced despite being an explosive athlete. So being able to exploit those matchups is interesting. And just on the offensive side of the ball, general answer is they execute really well. They run screens. They have play designs that are very well sold and executed. They're able to sneak guys out into the backside of coverage away from plays and do throwbacks and screens and things like that. They lie to you. They are fraudulent with their first couple of steps. A lot of times they make your eyes tell lies. They get you flowing the wrong way and then attack you the other way. Mahomes hasn't really been airing the ball out a ton yet. His average air yards intended is, I think, like 17th right now, something like that. So he hasn't really been crushing the deep ball, but teams don't let him. So he's been doing a good job taking what's underneath. And I think that's a little bit different than what the Ravens have seen the first two games.
Yeah, I think he's somewhere around 2 points something as far as yards per play, as opposed to like the 5 something that he was at last year. So it's under half. So definitely different, a little bit explosiveness wise through these first 2 games. What else we got?
LL Cool J with an underscore first asks, do you guys like the possibility of trading for a player such as Desmond King? Yes, That is right player, right price. If I can trade a third, fourth, fifth round pick, get Desmond King, another versatile piece. Unfortunately, I don't want to write Tavon Young off, but at this point, it's he can't stay healthy, and that's a bad contract. It's not a backbreaker of a contract at all. But with the Ravens valuing their secondary so much, they're going to test the waters. If Desmond King, is still frustrated there, if the Chargers lose a couple games, I really like the idea of acquiring another player. They're going to see what Anthony Averett can do again with, playing probably 20-30% of defensive snaps. And if they can't, then I think they should go get a slot corner, someone who can provide some versatility as a pass rusher as well. He's good in the box, he's a good tackler. So right player, right price. I think Eric DeCosta will make that call. And in 2 or 3 weeks, if the Ravens aren't able to answer their problems in-house.
Yeah, rookie deal. So right to price for sure. And definitely right player. Young, energetic, explosive guy, gets the ball in his hands a lot, which I think is important, especially in replacing a guy like Tavon Young, who did the same thing. So I would love a Desmond King move. I'd be interested to see what the Chargers do with that, because they are in a spot where they could maybe contend as early as next year. So maybe they do want to hang on to him depending on what happens here with Justin Herbert and his development. But intriguing situation for sure. And I would take him if they could get him.
Yeah, of course. He's a very talented player. One of probably the best slot cornerback in the NFL over the last couple of years. Moving on. Why is Patrick Ricard such a god? Casey Pickett 42 asks. I'm not sure if their number is 42 because of Patrick Ricard, but if so, that's awesome. He's just a big boy. He's a bull in a china shop.
How can we be sure that isn't Patrick Ricard himself on a burner account? Because we know he's a big fan of the show.
I think he's loud enough on social media where he doesn't need to do a burner. He's a wild boy.
He is a little bit. Yeah, he is a little bit of a wild boy.
Call him Steve-O.
Why is he a god? He just is, man. You can't explain some of this stuff. You can't explain gods. So,
yeah, I've been doing a great job. Other than that, he actually missed a big assignment. It looked like I did my film breakdown on YouTube. I have an article coming out shortly that contains that as well. And that first J.J. Watt sack on the Ravens' second drive looked like him and Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown was supposed to give J.J. Watt a little punch and then pass him off to Ricard and then leave the outside linebacker unblocked for Lamar Jackson to run a boot with 57 in his face. But instead, they let J.J. Watt come through, which bottled the play up, made Lamar Jackson have to kind of put his eyes down and tuck the ball, and then ended up getting a sack. But other than that, in the fumble, he's been rock solid. B-Rose 930.
He absolutely buried a dude on that Ingram Wildcat touchdown, too.
Yes, he laid down flat on top of him and said, shh, good night. Good night. Have a good sleep, sweetie pie. But anyway, moving on. B-Rose 931, our boy, asks, any young players you guys could see having a breakout performance in this game? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find a prop on him, but I'm gonna scour DraftKings after this. I'm taking Devin Duvernay on the motherfucking over for whatever receiving yards it could possibly be, even if it was up to like 45. I think that the Ravens have been hiding him and not throwing him the ball yet, waiting for this Chiefs game. He is flying down the field on the outside. The Chiefs don't have, crazy corner now. Their top corner is out, like I mentioned. We also hear Lamar Jackson talk about how, they've won him flying under the radar. They are saving a deep shot or two for this Chiefs game. That is good coaching. That is preparing for a team is coming down the pipeline. If you watch him on kickoff, he is 10 yards ahead of everyone else. If you watch him run a go route, he is flying past corners a little bit. They're just using him to run coverage off on the backside, but I think they're going to dial up a couple shots for Duvernay, kind of have some looks that would be similar based on what they did in week 1 and week 2 to indicate that the ball is going to go to Mark Andrews or it's going to go to Marquise Brown, and then they're going to end up shooting for Duvernay, and I think that he's going to have an awesome game.
Yeah, and I think that's backed up by the fact that when he has touched the ball, it's only been 2 or 3 times, but he's looked like an absolute pro player out there. A little bit of a far cry from some of the receivers we've seen in the Ravens draft. He just looks like maybe not the most physically dominant guy out there, but he is the total finished package, I think, right now. That's what he's going to be.
He's well polished. Yeah, he's ready to play.
Exactly. And I think this is a good game for him. Me personally, I think this is the Gus Dobbins game. I think you get the 1-2 punch of Gus just plunging up the middle, maybe the most underrated running back in the NFL right now. I think it was Ryan Clark was making the observation that they just hang on to him for the fourth quarter, and then he just salts the game away, just rushes up the middle like a battering ram. I think he's going to get a lot of touches up the middle. I think Dobbins is going to be your outside sort of perimeter guy. The Chiefs have shown they can be exploited in the run game, and the Ravens are the team to do it with this stable of backs. I think Ingram's going to maybe make a few plays, but those two guys would be my my young guys that break out. I guess Gus has already broken out in some capacity, but I think this is a big Dobbins game at the very least.
Yeah, I love Gus Edwards. I just love him. So according to Next Gen Stats, he had 10 carries last week. 5 of those were against an 8-man box or more. He ends up running for 2.31 yards over expectation, over what the average run would be on that given play based on positions on the field and everything like that. 50% of those runs went for more yards than expected. And he's just a first down machine, man. He's so efficient. He spends such little time, but there's such little wasted motion. He consistently always gets past the line of scrimmage. He's so good in those short run situations. So this really is a 3-headed monster at running back. We saw Dobbins, athleticism, elusiveness, his natural ball skills, all that stuff on display, his physicality, but I think he's still getting integrated into the offense, but those manufactured touches, he is so dangerous on. We saw them just get him the ball in space at the end of the game. Holy crap, made a couple guys miss. So smooth, so fast, so explosive. Definitely way more explosive than Mark Ingram looks. And I agree. Ingram looks a little, he's a vet. He's a, 30-plus vet. He's still really good. He's still a highly effective player, but he's not, he never really was an explosive speed guy, but looks like he's lost a step, but is continuing to make up for that in savvy. We heard Matt Weiss, the Ravens running backs coach, talk about how he thinks Ingram's going to be effective for a couple more years because the things that make him good aren't dependent upon explosiveness and losing a step and things like that. So I really like that question that Matt Weiss answered a couple weeks ago. Moving on, Gorsucha08. Who do you think covers Tyreek and Kelsey? It seems that Kelsey is always open. Who do you like in matchups that way? And how do you? The better question is, how do the Ravens kind of limit those guys as opposed to maybe just one guy being on them?
I think you don't get cute. I think Humphrey has shown the ability to stick with some of these best guys. So you stick Hill with him and try to make it work. So I'd go Tyreek Hill covered by Marlon Humphrey. I want Marcus Peters to get some interesting looks that's going to be able to get him open and maybe make a play on the ball here. So not really sure how that's going to happen, but I do want to see Peters get put into the right spots in this one. As far as Kelsey, I don't know, man. Like, I really have no idea. Maybe Chuck Clark, maybe you double him with Clark and a linebacker, but it just feels like he's going to get his in this game. I think he's going to get his underneath at the very least. It's again, you just have to try and limit the big play from Kelsey. So I'd probably maybe try to double him, but I'm not really sure how that's going to work out.
I would kind of put Marcus Peters, unless, of course, the Chiefs, obviously there will be snaps where Hill and Kelsey are on different sides of the field, if they'll be on the same side of the field. But if Hill and Kelsey are lined up on one side of the formation, I'm putting Marcus Peters on the opposite end in a flat responsibility, or just with a running back responsibility into the flats if it's man coverage or something. And I'm trying to undercut Kelsey with Peters and see if he can go sky and make a crazy catch. Patrick Owasso did that last year and just couldn't get up high enough to get the ball in the air, and it went a centimeter above Owasso's fingertips. But I like what they did with Owasso there. Kelsey ended up catching that ball, but undercutting Kelsey with Peters feels like a way to get a pick. And then, Marlon, the Ravens don't like, because they have two highly paid, highly valuable cornerbacks. They don't like to shadow, but I don't trust Marcus Peters to really hang with Tyreek Hill the same way that I do Marlon Humphrey. And Marlon Humphrey has that recovery speed that I think exceeds what Peters is able to do a little bit. So it's going to be those things. It's going to be trying to, combo coverage Kelsey, have 2 or 3 defenders kind of in zone coverage and just get ahead of him and behind him and try and make tight throws. And if they can convert those, that's why they get paid big bucks. Mahomes $500 million, Kelsey $100 million.
Hide Peters a little bit and let him go get that pick at some point that he desperately wants to get.
Of course, he desperately was. Fun fact: Marcus Peters actually had a pick 6 again at that game that you attended.
He sure did. One Clausen.
Yeah, picked Jimmy Clausen in Baltimore, took it to the house. Pick 6.
That was sick. That was his rookie year.
It was his rookie year. That's when he really broke out. Alex Smearman, moving on. Alex Smearman also asks, could Miles Boykin be the next Anquan Bolden? No, he can't be the next Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden was just innately a alpha. And I think we see that in the blocking game from Boykin a lot, but Boykin is still learning. He's talked about it. He's still learning how to use that mentality that he has as a blocker, as a receiver. He kind of plays this small ball receiver with a really long frame.
So he has 3 inches and who knows how many pounds on Bolden, and he plays 10 20 pounds lighter than him, which is fine. They're just different styles of player. So he's probably not going to be a Bolden. I think maybe best case scenario, you'd look at somebody like Keenan Allen. I don't think he's quite going to be that, but just more of a finesse open space type of game.
Yeah, he is a unique friend. I think like AJ Green is the maximum of everything in Boykin's career went right. He would be like he's like a lanky finesse receiver that knows how to, AJ Green knows how to use his body and then mauls people in the run game. But Bolden was just, he didn't have to separate. He was one of a kind. Bolden was the exception. He ran a 4.7. He didn't need to separate because he would just dunk on people, and you can't bank on people being that exception. And Boykin has not shown anything in that regard. But I think Boykin had his best game last week. I think the Ravens love the way that he played last week. He runs a mean slant. He has such good agility as a route runner, but still kind of inefficient in his path to the ball on some deeper throws we've seen. He's not smooth getting to the catch point and tracking the ball on some deeper concepts. I do want to see them air the ball out this week and take some shots with him. Feels like the Chiefs will probably try to give Hollywood Brown a little special attention because they know he has that speed, but this could definitely be a big Miles Boykin week. Moving on, Adam Jones for 357, our 5-time Gold Glover asks, or first he says, "Hey, I've been waiting for Captain Jake and Dr. King Schultz to open the bag. We've been waiting to hear your questions, Adam. How hype are you for the game, and one thing you're looking from Lamar and Mahomes each?" Then he has another question. So what are you looking, Jake, from this game for out of Lamar and Mahomes?
Well, first things first, I'm very hyped. So let's get that out of the way. I think this is going to be an excellent game. The fact that it is so early in the season, I think does sort of change the stakes a little bit. I think these are two teams that, as our guest is going to put it, have bigger fish to fry. But yeah, very excited for the game. As far as looking for from Lamar and Mahomes, that's an interesting one. From Lamar, maybe a little bit more in terms of what we saw in week one, sitting back in the pocket, being surgical, because I think he's going to have the opportunity to pick apart this front seven at the very least. If you get like a Mark Andrews covered by one of these linebackers who doesn't quite have the pace to hang with him, looking for him to hit Mark Andrews and work the middle of the field like he's so good at doing. As far as Mahomes, I'm looking for him to hopefully turn the ball over, not complete any deep passes, and play like shit.
I think that Mahomes is looking for blood against the Ravens. I think he is sick of hearing the Ravens hype train. Hasn't beat them.
Yeah, I know. Especially Patrick Mahomes, the guy, like he doesn't really get enough hype or recognition. So especially some other team and other quarterback is going to get he can't allow that, right? He's got to come out and silence the haters, right? Everyone's doubting him.
Well, he hasn't gotten a lot of attention. He hasn't thrown the ball downfield a ton until last week and made a spectacular play. But I think that he kind of fucking hates the Ravens.
Yeah,
I think he kind of fucking hates the Ravens, to be honest.
Feelings starting to get a little mutual here.
Yeah, of course. And in terms of Lamar, what I hope for is calmness in the pocket. I think we saw him get a little rattled by, the Texans running behind him. And it might have been because he doesn't want to get stripped, which is great. He didn't turn the ball over. That is the best thing that he could have done in this last game, was keep the drive alive, maintain the possession, not give the Texans a short field, not turn the ball over, because this defense is generating so many turnovers. So I want to see him be calm in the pocket, 2 hands on the ball, and just read the field, understand where the defense is moving. Sometimes some of these check down options, some of these, guys who weren't the primary read are wide open in this offense because Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews demand so much attention. So stay aware of those. I also want to see the damn backs get into the flat fast. Don't waste time. If you're supposed to get in the flat, chip if it's there. If not, get into the damn flat, because Lamar works so quickly. If you're not being efficient, he's not going to look at you and he's not going to read you. So I want to see open checkdowns. I want to see the backs get out of the backfield if they're supposed to be. I think that they were kind of lollygagging a little bit too much over these first 2 games, something that we also saw on tape last year. They need to get to their spots quickly for Lamar. That will give him security in the pocket as well. And overall, I just want to see him ball. I just want to see primetime Lamar ball. It's time for him to prove that he can beat the Chiefs, that he's worthy of whatever consideration, and silence all these people about how Lamar can't play with them, can't play from behind, blah, 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 all that shit. Lamar Jackson has never lost to the same team 3 times. He's never lost to the same quarterback 3 times. Deshaun Watson beat him twice. He has lost to Patrick Mahomes twice. So don't want to see Patrick Mahomes be the first quarterback to beat him 3 times.
I'm with you.
Moving on, we'll try and get over to whatever we had on Twitter. So I'll try and find a good one. Jay Reinhardt 87 asked, we have 2 more that I want to get to. We'll get through these quickly. Jay Reinhardt 87, how do Ravens handle Chris Jones with a rookie right guard? Use his aggression against him. Let him through, cut him, wham blocks, trap blocks. Let's see if you can make him the player in the backfield. You try and let him through, make him that read player, and do football judo. Use his aggression and momentum against him. Try and see if you can get him working side to side instead of downhill, and give Tyree Phillips help. If Chris Jones is a problem, you need to have Boyle in the backfield to deal with, to steer him and help. Using Boyle, using Ricard, using those guys is going to be a key, and trying to steer plays away. If you get Frank Clark and Chris Jones same side, check to the other side. Don't, run into the teeth of their defense, their 2 best players. So I want to see them use his aggression against him.
Yeah, I think get him frustrated, maybe run the other way a little bit. Like I mentioned, I think they're going to have some success running the ball. So maybe if he's lined up right, run it left, get him frustrated, get him chasing, and then hit him with that play action, get Lamar some wide open looks back there to maybe make a big throw, just frustrate him.
And with Orlando Brown and Tyree Phillips, when they work a combo block, they work a damn combo block. They crush people. Those are 2 massive, strong, mobile human beings. When they double team someone inside, if Chris Jones is lined up at the 3 tech or at the 1 tech over there on that right side of the line, move him off the ball. They got their guys' feet in the air. Use Nick Boyle to combo block down on Chris Jones. If he's lined up in the 5 tech, Orlando Brown and Nick Boyle, bring Boyle over, move Chris Jones out of the way. Those 2 guys can move anyone in the NFL. I have seen it at this point. Orlando Brown and Nick Boyle crack inside, move anyone in the NFL. I'm positive of that. So I think
for all the talk about this offensive line and the struggles they've had, the talent may not be there like it's been in past years. These guys are working their ass off, and you can tell in some of those plays, and you can tell with the job that Joe D has done with this unit over the last couple of years, ever since he joined this coaching staff. It's been they have not been lacking for effort.
Absolutely. They have such a complex scheme. There's so many different assignments, so many different types of blocks, guys pulling. Basically everyone except for Orlando Brown pulls. That is because he's so freaking big. You don't see guys that big pull, but everyone has to be able to pull both ways. They use Tyree Phillips to pull in pass protection and seal the backside while they kind of shift to the opposite end. So, or I guess to the right, usually if he's pulling. So a lot of usage there, doing some things like that, getting different guys moving and doing everything you can to confuse Jones, give him different looks. Don't just let him, engage one-on-one and work, because he's going to win that way, way more than most guys will. To our final question from Instagram, John Amos, my boy, asks, are the Ravens going to be able to sign in the long term Marlon, Stanley, Lamar, and Andrews? And my answer is yeah. I think that those guys are definitely all able to be signed. That means that Judon is gone, and I think they can definitely retain those guys. They are going to have enough cash. The TV deal going to go up. Lamar is under control next year and the year after still. So, that means you're giving him a signing bonus at some point in the next 2 years, and then you're not going to have those huge cap hits until 2023, probably 2023, 2024. I think if Andrews stays relatively healthy, they're not, tight ends don't break the bank too much. They can, the Ravens are pretty cash heavy. They haven't spent a ton of money aside from Earl Thomas and some other ancillary guys. Marcus Peters is another one too that they spent a lot of money on. Not a lot of big contracts. So I think that they'll be able to sign all those guys for sure. And Orlando Brown's not mentioned in there, but I think they'll be able to retain both of their tackles too.
Yeah, I agree. It's if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, like maybe I'd say no, because I think it maybe can be an overblown thing that the cap isn't real and everything. But if you look at the evidence, man, look at the Rams. Like they're extending freaking everyone all the time. They never have any cap room. Look at the Saints. They're over the cap every single year. And maybe that's a function of them knowing that Drew Brees is going to be gone and they're going to be in rebuild mode pretty soon. So they're just trying to go all in. They're projected to be like 150 million over the cap at some point. So maybe there's going to be a breaking point, maybe not. But as things stand, the cap really isn't that much of an issue right now. They can sign all these guys. And even if it is like a cash rules everything around me type deal, the Rams just spent however many $1 billion on that stadium, and they're still doing fine. So I think they can.
The reason for that is because they have the richest owner in football. When you have a lot of cash flow, when you have actual liquid money on hand, you can pay huge signing bonuses. When you pay huge signing bonuses, that allows you to slide those bonuses around the duration of the contract. If a contract is 5 years, you can give a player a huge signing bonus. He's happy and make his cap hit down the road not bad. Or you can put that money down the road and huge bonuses at the end of the contract. So I think we'll see some counterbalancing with maybe Mark Andrews getting paid a lot of money up front, and then maybe Lamar Jackson getting paid a shitload of money down the road, something like that. So sliding those bonuses around. The Ravens aren't as rich as the Rams, but they're a lot richer than most teams. Steve Bisciotti is not on the bottom half of owners in terms of that. The Ravens are one of the top revenue teams in the NFL and in the world. They're in the top 30, I believe, of all sports franchises in the globe, around the globe. So I think that the Ravens have more money than people realize, and the cap is a hard cap, in terms of a yearly number. But you can give guys as much bonuses as you want and then figure it out later. If you have cash to do that, to write those big heavy bonuses on, you're fine. So that's why the Rams are able to do what they do. The Saints doing what they're doing. Teams like that work. And it's going to be some interesting questions, but that does it for IG questions. Great questions all around. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Had a couple we probably couldn't get to with some time constraints today, but we're going to be able to dive in further, hopefully moving forward. So jumping over to Twitter, first one from the Daily Raven. KC is 23rd in yards allowed per play. How do they take advantage? Can you see a breakout game coming from Hollywood Brown? I definitely do, man. This Chiefs defense, I think they have some opportunistic tendencies. You saw L'Jarius Sneed get an interception in week 1. He's their rookie cornerback who's doing a nice job, but I think they can be victimized a little bit. You saw Herbert making some touch throws in week 2 there. Some of them were a little miraculous, but I think you can definitely get open against these guys, and I think Hollywood Brown is going to be a prime target in this one.
Force missed tackles. Be elusive. Don't go down. The Chiefs are second in the NFL in missed tackles through 2 weeks. The Chargers ran train on them in the open field. They forced a ton of missed tackles on you. If you take a look at my article that's coming out, the film breakdown on BaltimoreBeatdown.com, I showed the next gen stats spray chart of where Justin Herbert threw, and it was a lot underneath, a lot of, drags, a lot of check downs in the flat, a lot of stuff over the short middle area of the field. And then they made guys miss after the catch. So ball placement, hitting guys in stride, screens, outside runs, getting into the second and third level against the Chiefs. They have Honey Badger. He's a menace. Lamar Jackson made Honey Badger look like a fucking idiot in Kansas City last year on that final touchdown to get the game 33-28. I mean, absolutely shook the shit out of Honey Badger and Dan Sorensen into the end zone, and then gave him a little stare down, even though, Nutch was still losing, so he didn't get too disrespectful, but shook him. So I think that getting good open field production is imperative towards really putting up points against the Chiefs. And the Ravens have guys that can make you miss with all of their backs. Their backs can run through contact or miss. Lamar Jackson is the most elusive player in the NFL. That is backed up by data. If you want to go to SISdatahub.com, you can check that out and go to each player and see what their forced missed tackle rate is. And Lamar Jackson's is number 1 of anyone with any significant touches. So having those guys, having guys that can get yards after contact, force broken tackles, and force missed tackles, if they're able to get rolling, it's going to be a long one. And Mark Ingram was able to make some guys miss and run through some contact last year in Kansas City. And I think these backs, you mentioned J.K. Dobbins earlier, Jake, potentially having a big game. Devin Duvernay, get him a couple touches, see if he can break some tackles, things like that. Otherwise, Marquise Brown really feels so far like he doesn't make guys miss like that. So he's one guy that, is able to run after the catch, but hasn't been crazy elusive to this point. So I'm looking to him to see if he can maybe
when he catches the ball weirdly. Like, have you noticed that when he climbed the ladder last week and he's kind of wobbling around? It's like, what's going on here?
You said he's what? I'm sorry.
He's a little chaotic when he catches it. There's kind of some herky jerk motions, which I think that's a function of how fast and twitchy he is. But sometimes when he has to climb the ladder and go up and make a off platform catch, he comes down off platform, which can hurt his after the catch ability.
Yeah. If he has to go up and grab a ball, it's tough to come down and immediately start again. So we'll see. But missed tackles, not turning the ball over, those are how they can take advantage. I think that the Chiefs aren't going to be able to hold the perimeter when you have Boykin and Boyle and Ricard kind of getting outside the hashes, outside of the tackle box, getting into space and making blocks. They have Honey Badger who can take on blocks. Their linebackers are not crazy. They're not LJ Fort right now running through contact, or Malik Harrison running through contact like we see on the other side of the football for the Ravens. But those guys aren't killers, haven't been so far this year. Getting to the perimeter with some running lanes, it could be very dangerous, and making sure to take advantage of them, not missing the hole, not missing cutback lanes, being efficient, but also understanding space and leverage. We saw a couple instances where Lamar Jackson didn't read leverage that great. He followed the play. Then, we saw one outside option keep where Nick Boyle perfectly had the outside. He sealed back towards the inside. You could see the back of Boyle's jersey if you were Lamar, and then Lamar cut back into the block for some reason. So some of those things are able to be avoided and take advantage of those running lanes. That'll be very important against the Chiefs.
Gaz, Poole, how much of an impact does an empty bank at primetime make? You have to think the atmosphere is a huge reason we're on a 12-game streak. Yeah, I kind of agree, but it's like we've been talking about this offline. It's like, what are you going to do? There's no fans. But, I mean, there has been, some stuff going around the league with some of these Seahawks players that were going nuts on the sideline and making noise, which you don't typically see, but they were doing that on that last drive versus the Patriots. Maybe that helps. Maybe it's the BYOE, bring your own energy thing that I'm really loving from some of the Ravens players right now. Just, bring your own energy, make it happen. You don't have fans. It's going to be a little bit more of an equal matchup from that perspective. But listen, maybe that'll help them keep emotions out of it and just go out and get things done.
So the Chiefs had the Thursday night football game in Kansas City against the Texans. So they had a couple extra days. Then they traveled to LA. Now they traveled to Baltimore within 7 days, or 8 days, excuse me. Did I say San Diego?
No, LA. They were on the
phone. I was about to be pissed. I've been pretty good on the LA and not saying San Diego.
Yeah. No, they were in LA. They were in the hills.
Yeah, they were in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills. That's where the Chiefs want to be. But so they've had to travel across country. They do get another extra day. So the Chiefs at this point have had 4 extra days of rest. They have 8 from Sunday to Monday, and then they had 3 extra from Thursday. So a little bit of an advantage there for the Chiefs, but they've had to travel a lot. So they're losing 2 days to travel. It's a little bit difficult to play back-to-back road games on opposite sides of the country. So a lot of flyer miles there. And I think the Ravens will be able to take advantage a little bit. Chiefs might not have, 1,000,000,000% energy. And these are things that are, not objective. These are opinion-based, but this isn't the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. They just won a Super Bowl. This is like the Ravens Super Bowl a little bit. And it feels like a game that they really might be out to prove something at home on Monday night without the fans. I've heard the Ravens talk about holding down the bank. They've got to do it. They got to put their money where their mouth is. The communication lines are clear on the field. So you can't really say that benefits one team or the other, but you're going to hear everything. The offense is going to be able to hear the snap anticipation. You can toy around with snap counts. We saw Lamar Jackson actually force 2 neutral zone infractions or offsides by the Texans defense on hard counts. That's fucking awesome to do in a quiet stadium. That is awesome. That's something you can't do when you're playing in Kansas City. You have to go with a silent count. You're not able to get guys on the defense to jump when you're playing in Seattle as an opposing quarterback. So being able to take advantage of that, use those things to your advantage against the Chiefs and make it work. So hold down the bank. Maybe the Chiefs don't really fucking care this game quite as much as the Ravens do, because the Chiefs have bigger fish to fry, and feels like the Ravens really want to fry this fish.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess last one we'll get to here with Tavon out. Do you see Mecole Hardman or Sammy Watkins, if he plays, having an abnormally big game, knowing we will game plan to try to contain Kelsey and Hill?
I'm going to go with Robinson. He is averaging the most yards of separation per Next Gen Stats. He's averaging 6.5 yards per separation per route run at its apex.
Dude, that just nobody ever talks about, but always has a big game whenever the lights come on for them.
Yes, he is the one who benefits. He gets the matchups. I don't think they trust Mecole Hardman as a downfield receiver the same way they do with Demarcus Robinson. I think they trust Mecole Hardman working side to side, doing jet motion, running some easy breaking routes. But Demarcus Robinson runs those corner routes, those 15 to 20-yard corner routes, and runs some deep posts, and he works downfield a lot. So I think that he's the guy that can kind of really slip back there And he did last year against the Ravens too. He had that spectacular one-handed grab on a pretty wide fucking open touchdown where Mahomes kind of missed just a little bit. It was a little overthrown, and Robinson was able to snag it in the end zone with no one within 5 yards of him. So he seems like the one that benefits from these situations.
Whenever you do the flare on the little bit, it makes me think of Mr. Unlimited. Tell him.
Just a little bit, Mr. Unlimited.
Unlimited. Hopefully that is going to be Lamar Jackson this coming Monday night. What is your prediction? Ravens at Chiefs 2020.
I'm fucking doing it again. I tried not to. I thought about the game. I thought about the game. I thought about it. I've put myself into it. My picks are up on Tally site. You guys can go check our picks out there. We get those in every Wednesday night.
Did you happen to do the best out of anyone on that little thing last week? You didn't really like mention it at all or anything.
Yeah, that's what someone said. Yeah, I did the best.
Many people tweeted about it twice in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I thought that I like didn't send one, so I pulled the douchebag horn and was blowing smoke up my own ass. But
listen,
yeah,
that
I was the only fucking person in the country to go 16-0 on picks last week. That is CBS, ESPN, ABC, all that shit. So if you want to follow me on Tally site, you want to get some gambling winnings going this weekend, follow the boys, tallysite.com. I believe I've tweeted about it twice. It might be pinned to my profile right now. I can't remember on my Twitter, but I'll tweet out my. Yeah, Spenny Picks is in full fucking force right now. No, it is my YouTube content for this week's film breakdown. I talked about the Ravens' first scoring drive. That's pinned, but go to Tally site, Baltimore Beatdown. It's on the Baltimore Beatdown website. You can see our picks. I went Ravens. Like I said, I think that the Ravens are treating this a little more seriously. The Chiefs coming off of back-to-back road games is a lot different than traveling to Kansas City these past 2 years. The Ravens have been waiting for this game. I feel it. I feel that they have put stuff on film for the Chiefs to take a bite at. Lamar Jackson's completion percentage over expectation via Next Gen Stats. I fucking love Next Gen Stats, if you guys can't tell. They are the best. Their stats, their charts, awesome. But Jackson is currently second in the NFL in completion percentage over expectation. He barely trails Mr. Unlimited, who's also been on fire. Give it to us.
It's Mr. Unlimited. Tell him.
He has been first, and Lamar Jackson's right behind. His completion percentage expectation is like 65. Jackson's up at like 80, right about actually like 78, if I recall correctly. So he's been on point with ball placement, with accuracy, and I think he's ready. I think they're ready. They want this one. The defense has weapons that they didn't have each of the last 2 years when they played Kansas City. They did not have a Calais Campbell. There was no Calais Campbell in this defensive front that is equally as savvy as a guy who can help create pressure for his teammates in terms of taking up two blockers and crashing two blockers to open up twists. We haven't seen a guy that has the length in the run game and the ability to stack and have length to shut down two different gaps. The secondary with Marcus Peters, the best corner tandem that the Ravens have had over the past 3 years when they played the Chiefs is Peters and Humphrey. They haven't had those two yet, with Jimmy Smith as well able to do some things. I think that losing Earl Thomas is huge. The Chiefs did not target Earl Thomas deep. I think we see them go after Deshaun Elliott. I think they will hit on Deshaun Elliott a couple times and really test those safeties. But the corner play is strong. Rely on those guys. They can generate pressure. They have the second most generated pressure in the NFL right now. And coming off of a tough ass overtime game for the Chiefs across the country, going to Baltimore is going to be a fucking buzzsaw. And I think this is still a close game, of course, but I think the Ravens are going to look a lot better, and they're ready to show the world. Like I said, it's kind of sad in a way because the Chiefs have won the past 2 times. This isn't the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. They're not going to Baltimore and taking a loss isn't a big deal for them. But to the Ravens, I feel like beating Kansas City is a major focus. I think the coaching staff will be on point. I think Harbaugh is not willing to have any sort of bullshit energy in the locker room this week. I don't know what's going on there. It's his birthday week, but I think they're going to be on point. So I'm going to go Ravens 27, Chiefs 21. And the Chiefs have the ball at the end of the game and can't score a touchdown to win it.
Well, that didn't work. I was trying to play my Mr. Unlimited clip, but it's not working for some reason.
Mr. Unlimited.
So we got 27-21 for you. I'm in a little bit of a different spot in that I've picked the Chiefs the last 2 times. So I picked them to win in 2018. I picked them to win in 2019. I wanted to approach those games from I'm not picking from an emotional perspective. And listen, I'm not picking this from an emotional perspective. I think the Ravens are ready. I think they're going to get it done here. They're at home. I think they've played consistently better football than the Chiefs so far in 2020. I think they do want this game more, which is, whatever sports radio guy picking emotionally. I think that plays in. I think they really want to get this thing done. I think Harbaugh is going to have them ready to go. And if you look at the numbers, like the Chiefs have been, playing not quite up to par with the Ravens. If you look at DVOA and efficiency, there's a significant gap, I think, between the Chiefs offense and the Ravens defense right now, which is kind of weird, but the Chiefs are
Ravens defense is the X factor here. The Ravens defense being able to create pressure and cover back end is fucking huge. And then having ball hunter like Queen and Clark and Malik Harrison and those guys that can run a little bit in space to the perimeter and make sure that they're not getting crushed out on the perimeter.
And you look at some of these game-breaking plays that have happened the last couple of times. Tyreek Hill covered by CJ Mosley for some reason that essentially cost them the Ravens the game in 2018. They should have won that game. I don't think they should have won last year necessarily, but you have Mecole Hardman just breaking open a wide-open 83-something yard touchdown. The Chiefs are not going deep nearly as much this season. They had the one play to Hill against the Chargers, which essentially won them that game. Sometimes that happens, but eventually the ball is going to bounce your way in that respect. And coupled with the fact that they just really aren't even going deep in the same way. They're a much shorter kind of small ball offense through the first 2
teams
games.
Haven't been letting them, but
sure,
that is a shitty thing to do against the Ravens, is to try and get ticky-tacky underneath, because they are physically dominant up front and they give so many different looks. They drop into shallow zones. They bluff and drop into coverage. Primary reads underneath aren't there. If the Chiefs can't blow the Ravens away deep, that like all game, I think the Ravens win this game, unless they are just assaulting Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark deep.
Absolutely. And they've been efficient running the small ball offense. It's worked for them, but
very efficient.
I think they're running into a little bit of a buzzsaw here. I'm going to go Ravens. Listen, all this talk about the kickers, I'm not a big kicker analysis guy, but I'm going to go Ravens kicker gets it done. Justin Tucker, 38-37, Ravens win. Shootout. Chiefs are still a very strong team, and this game doesn't mean as much to them as Baltimore. I think this might have a bearing on home field advantage, but the Ravens want this thing. I think they get it done in an absolute heart pounder, 38-37.
And in terms of the fan perspective, it might be better for the Ravens long term to lose to the Chiefs in some sort of Mr. Miyagi way. It might have, if the Ravens lose this game, which, I'm not crazy confident in the Ravens, but I'm confident enough to pick them. And if they defeat the Chiefs, or if the Chiefs are able to go into Baltimore on Monday night, expose some issues, make the Ravens, play from behind. Everyone's gonna be, and if the Ravens lose and Lamar Jackson couldn't come back to win, like all that fucking shit, but it'll give them some experience with it, and it'll show improvement that needs to be made.
They got to learn how to play from behind there. They can't do it there with Lamar. Got to learn how to throw from behind and win the game.
You mean like he did last year and brought the Ravens back from 24-6 at halftime to lose by 5 points in Kansas City?
Oh, that wasn't a close game.
Yeah, whatever. People just move the goalposts. We're all for goalpost moving here. That's the good stuff. We love.
And listen, I've tried to pride myself on the fact that I pick with my head. That can make me be a little more pessimistic. Sometimes I picked the Patriots in the big game last year. I picked the Rams in the big game last year. I was proven wrong both times. I'm picking with my head here, and I think the Ravens are going to get it done.
I think so too. I think it is time. I've seen enough. I said I wasn't pick the Ravens to beat the Chiefs until they do, but they have to. They can't get sacked on third down if they want to win this game. Lamar has to be efficient in the pocket. They're going to need to really create matchups with Mark Andrews inside, and if the Chiefs take that away, Snead, Boykin, those guys are going to have to be reliable underneath, and the backs need to get to the flats for checkdowns. They can do those things. I think the Ravens kind of shock people with how well they're able to move the ball in the Chiefs.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun one. Anything else, bud?
Nope, nothing else. Excited for this one Monday night. Sad that we can't all be at the bank, but it is what it is. At least we have football. So don't get too upset about the fact that you can't go to the game. It was a world a couple months ago where it looked like football was very doubtful for this time. So to have this Chiefs Monday night game and have a way better Monday night crew, oh my God. Louis Riddick is, they're not the best. They're not the best I've heard. I did love Gruden so much more. He was so much more fun. but this is better than Booger and fucking Witten. So
they're very solid. You've got, Lewis isn't the most, he doesn't bring the juice necessarily, but very good analysis. I've been
level-headed analysis is a good way to put it.
I've been campaigning for him to be the analysis since Gruden left, basically, and I think he's not knocking it out of the park from the entertainment standpoint, but very good analysis, and always been a big Steve Levy fan. I think he's still kind of finding his feet as far as the big stage.
For sure.
I think he'll get there. I think they're two guys who I really enjoy, and I think Greasy's in there too, right?
Yeah, Greasy's in there.
Yeah, he's I've liked what I've heard from him so far. So yeah, it's a good booth.
Yep, and we don't have any crazy comments in the big fan of the show. Always very detailed. Thank you. You guys are a treasure. Ranjith, we love you too. Liam Riddings, let's go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
MD Lost So Hard. Checking in to see the drip the boys are rocking today. Big truz. I don't have any drip today. I'm tired, but we're here. I mentally always have drip. Mentally always have the drip. Came through dripping.
That's what I love about you.
I can bring it. We'll always bring it for you guys. We love you guys. We love our listeners. Hey, head on over to the podcast, the Apple Podcasts, and give us those 5-star reviews. Keep us juicing. We're going to keep you guys juiced up. We're trying to get at least 2 episodes out. We've got 2 episodes for each of the last 2 weeks. We'll probably slip a couple interviews in at some point. We'll probably get an interview with one of the Ravens players when things settle down a little bit in the next couple of weeks. Kyle will request with the Ravens PR for us and bring us somebody. So we'll try. We usually get like younger guys and ancillary players. We're not going to get Lamar or anything like that, but we'll try and bring some fun guests on. Appreciate you guys. Head on over to the iTunes review charts, or if you're one of our newer listeners, we'd really appreciate a 5-star review. I'll beg for it. I don't even care at this point, but thank you guys so much for listening. Jake, get us the F out of here.
Thank you guys for listening. Like he said, follow the show on Twitter at Podcast Beatdown. Follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. Follow Spencer at Ravens4Dummies. That's the number 4. Check out the website. Going to be dropping the dossier tomorrow. Took a little bit of extra time on that this week. Wanted to really knock it out of the park. So a little Friday release for that. I love it.
I love it released on Friday. I like that. That's the perfect day for it to come out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I've been doing a pretty nice job with that. Want to get back into the groove with the writing, and it's been fun so far. Doing a little bit of a numbers-based thing, a little bit of film-based thing. I'm not an expert on film by any means, but I think I'm starting to learn it a little bit. So yeah, enjoying doing that. Really hope you guys are enjoying it and checking it out. So check that out on BaltimoreBeatdown.com, and be sure to check this site out on YouTube for full video episodes if you're not already watching them on the live stream. So yeah, really appreciate everyone checking us out. Hope you guys enjoy Monday night. Have yourselves a great weekend in the meantime, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
See ya.
So I'm going to get you out of here, and I'm going to throw this over to our interview real quick. And yeah, talk to you later.
All right, boss. Love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too. Bye. All right, we now welcome on a very special guest for this week's preview. It's Carrington Harrison from CBS Sports Radio and 610 Sports Radio in Kansas City. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. So first things first, you cover a Chiefs team that's had massive expectations coming into this 2020 season. So far through 2 weeks, how good of a job do you think they've done of living up to those expectations?
It's kind of weird because, excuse me, so much about the Chiefs is evaluating where they are at the end of the season and not the beginning of the season, where it's simple survive and advance. I mean, we saw last week in the NFL with the rash of injuries that happened. The Chiefs didn't earn any style points by how they played against the Los Angeles Chargers, but they managed to avoid any significant injury, and you live to play another day. So I think to answer your question, if we're talking about in the micro sense, I don't think they've lived up to expectations, but I don't really know how much that matters with this team. It's about, are you playing your best football at the end of the season? How do you look to defend your Super Bowl championship? That's all I think that matters this year for the team.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. And looking back at week 2, I mean, the Chargers have a talented roster, division rival and everything, but a rookie QB kind of unexpectedly thrust into the action last week. How surprised were you that they were kind of able to hang in there with the Chiefs, if you were surprised at all?
I was really surprised. I thought Kansas City was going to win pretty comfortably. I think they're just a far superior team to where the Chargers are. I will say this. I think the Chargers have the blueprint to give the Kansas City Chiefs trouble. If you think about it, in the Super Bowl, the defensive line of San Francisco sort of neutralized Kansas City's offense for the first 52 minutes of that game. I think you saw a very similar game plan from the Chargers in this game, where I thought their defensive line did a really good job. I thought Bosa won his one-on-ones against Mitchell Schwartz that sort of neutralized the Chiefs' advantage, and they made the Chiefs play uncomfortable. I think you've seen if you want to do two things to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it's you need to get pressure with your front four, and you probably need to bracket Tyreek Hill where the Chiefs offense was stalled until Tyreek Hill got involved in it. And that's what makes this team so special is I think they were playing D football for a majority of the game. Patrick Mahomes makes one play, Tyreek Hill's in the back of the end zone, they score a touchdown, they get the momentum going, and it pretty much spelled the end, I think, for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Definitely. And in that sense, what's kind of the main concern that you have with this Chiefs team after the first two games? You know, you got that game that was a little bit closer than expected. The Texans, they kind of take care of business. What would you think the main concern would be right now?
I'd probably say the two biggest concerns with the Kansas City Chiefs, number one, I would say their linebacker core and just tackling. Only one team in the NFL has given up or had more missed tackles than the Kansas City Chiefs. And playing against the Baltimore Ravens, if you're not going to be a sound defensive team, if you're not going to tackle, it's just going to be really, really difficult to beat them. I also would say, for whatever reason, this team just starts slow. Like, I don't know why they start slow, but 4 of their last 5 games, if you think about it, you date back to the playoffs, you think about the 2 games that they played so far this season, like, this team just gets off to really slow starts where against a team like Baltimore, where if you allow them to play for ahead and run the football effectively, man, you're not getting down 17-6 late in that ball game and beating them. That's where Lamar and that running game really pounds you into submission. So I think for this Chiefs team, just starting off a lot more quickly is going to be maybe the biggest thing for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and in that sense, Ravens fans always have a chip on their shoulder. But if you look at the two heavyweights in the AFC right now, I'd say it's Kansas City and I'd say it's Baltimore. Do you think that Ravens fans thinking that way? Do you think Chiefs fans kind of think the same way, that the Ravens are kind of the one team to keep an eye on, or are they just not even too worried about the competition right now?
Yeah, I went on the Big Bad Morning Show on 105.7 The Fan earlier today, and they asked me a similar question, and I think Kansas City has respect for Baltimore, maybe doesn't look at them as their equal, but they definitely have respect for Baltimore. I don't think there's a whole lot of respect for the other teams in the AFC West. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, Tennessee. I don't really think there's a lot of respect for those teams. Maybe some Chiefs fans consider those teams to be good, but they don't consider them to be legitimate threats. I do think with Baltimore, there's a look at it like we're the clear one, you're the clear two. But you got to prove it to us in the postseason where Lamar, he's only lost 3 regular season games. 2 of them are against the Kansas City Chiefs. He doesn't have a playoff win yet. So if you kind of compare that with what Patrick Mahomes has done, he has 4 playoff wins and also won Super Bowl MVP, while Lamar Jackson hasn't won 1 playoff game. I don't know if Chiefs fans will maybe take Baltimore as seriously as Baltimore deserves to be taken until Baltimore can get over that hump in January.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And you mentioned Mahomes there. Obviously, defending Super Bowl MVP and probably the best quarterback in the league right now. Who do you think, outside of him, who do you think is the most irreplaceable player on this Chiefs offense?
I would say it's Tyreek Hill. I think he's what makes him special. I think the 2 best traits that the Chiefs have is Patrick Mahomes' improvisation skills and how you can play the perfect defense against Mahomes. He scrambles to his left, he scrambles to his right, he makes a throw that just not many human beings, like not football players, not many human beings that have ever walked the earth can make. And I would say Tyreek Hill's speed, as we were just talking about in the game against the Chargers, I mean, the Chargers played Tyreek Hill well for a majority of the game. He makes one play where he gets behind the defense. Mahomes makes an incredible throw in the back of the end zone, and it changed the course of the game where at that point you were like, all right, Kansas City's going to win this game. I've seen them win this game time and time again. So to answer your question, the most irreplaceable player on the team, I think, is Tyreek Hill because he does so much on defense. I would say Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu just does everything. He can play safety. He can play corner. He can play linebacker if you need him to. Right now, the Chiefs cornerback group is really banged up with no Charvarius Ward, no Rashad Breeland. I mean, Matthew's done a really good job at that. Like, this team sort of goes as Tyrann Mathieu goes, in my opinion.
Nice. And yeah, God, that play was just a spirit breaker. As somebody rooting against the Chiefs, you see him dropping back, he's just going to heave it up, and Hill's going to be right there. So it's insane to watch, man.
Yeah, I think that Patrick Mahomes, man, I really think that he's Aaron Rodgers 2.0. We've got the ability, or we've had the ability to watch Aaron Rodgers for the last, 10 years, 12 years, like really dominate this league and just do things that you look at and say, man, I don't care that Brady has 6 Super Bowls. Bowls. Like, Brady is not more physically gifted than Aaron Rodgers. And a lot of the situation and teammates and all of that kind of stuff, man, I feel the exact same way about Mahomes. Just watching every throw that he's made, seeing it up close. He just does things that not a lot of quarterbacks in the history of the league can do. And he just celebrated his 25th birthday probably about 10 days ago. I mean, we're talking about Mahomes might be the best under 25 player in the history of the NFL. Like, think about how many great players there have been, guys that got off to great starts. Take the first 2.5 years of what Patrick Mahomes has done and put it up against any player in the history of the NFL. Like, maybe Jim Brown is the comparison, but Brady wasn't this. Russell Wilson wasn't this at age 25. He was just on an incredible trajectory.
You look at his talent, like you mentioned there, it's off the charts. It's peak Rodgers, it's peak Favre. I don't think anybody else really compares. And it's the talent and it's his fit within this offense, I think. I mean, there's no example of this attack really being stopped. It's maybe been slowed down in a couple games. If you were the Ravens defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, how do you think you would approach to trying to at least slow them down in this one?
I heard something really good from Bill Barnwell, and it's kind of stuck with me this entire time, that good defenses don't stop good offenses. Free agency and injuries stop good offenses. That the league is built in a way where if you're Baltimore, it's just going to work. If it's Kansas City, it's going to work. The way Arizona and Kyler Murray is playing right now, it's just going to work. So, I mean, defensively, I would say your best two chances to beat Patrick Mahomes are this. You need to run the football effectively and keep Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines. Mahomes can't beat you if he doesn't have his helmet on. So running the football, number one, is the best way to beat him. And number two, you have to get pressure with your front four. If you got to send 5 or 6 to get pressure on Mahomes, then you've lost the game, because he's going to have one-on-one on the outside with Travis Kelce. He's going to have one-on-one on the outside with Tyreek Hill. And I'm sorry, your defensive players are just not good enough to one-on-one cover the Kansas City Chiefs over the spread of 60 minutes. And that's not even factoring in Sammy Watkins. We'll see if he plays in this game with Cole Hardman and a guy like DeMarcus Robinson, who he's a guy who could have 4 catches for 50 yards in this game, like with Patrick Mahomes. And we haven't even talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, their rookie running back out of LSU. So there's just so many weapons on this team that I don't know if in modern-day NFL defenses that you're really equipped to stop what Kansas City does consistently.
You're a true pro, because you were leading right into my next one here. If you had to sum up Edwards-Helaire's game in just one word, what do you think it would be?
Let me give you, I guess, maybe more than one word, but I think we'll sort of fit it. I think he is Ray Rice. I think he is Maurice Jones-Drew. I think he could be Brian Westbrook. There were only one player last year in Division I college football who had more catches than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That last year, I thought one of the weaknesses with the Chiefs team from a roster building standpoint were they were the worst rushing team amongst playoff teams. They're the first Super Bowl team to win the Super Bowl and have less than 25 yards a game, or 25 carries a game, that if you're going to give them the ability to incorporate the play action pass and also run the football effectively with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it just makes them that much more difficult to stop. But the Chargers did a really good job of, they made the Chiefs one-dimensional again. Like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not have a big numbers day. He had a couple of big catches out of the backfield. He actually had a big catch where the Chiefs could have won the game in regulation, but they had a penalty. They had a lot of penalties in the game against the Chargers. But maybe to answer your question, dynamic. I think he is a dynamic runner. I think he has a chance to be one of the top 12 rushers in the NFL. I kind of think of him like Josh Jacobs. Like, I don't think Josh Jacobs is a top 5 running back, but I think he's really good. Where if that's your running back, you're really happy that you have Josh Jacobs. That's how I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be, somewhere in that range.
I like it. And it's interesting because if you look at these couple games, these first 2 games, and you look at the numbers, they're on pace for, I think, like less than half of the amount of deep shots, 20-plus yard plays that they had in 2019. Do you think that's a function of him being involved in the offense, maybe them trying to just sort of take what the defense gives them a little bit more? What do you think that's a function of?
I think it's probably the latter. I think the teams have sort of tried to take the big play away. Like, they've only had one of those big plays to Tyreek Hill. It was funny, and some of it was because Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first game, where every game that Patrick Mahomes had played, he had 2 passes over 20 yards. He only attempted one in the game week 1 against the Houston Texans. That some of it is taking what the defense gives you. Some of it is running the football effectively. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the most carries that any running back has had since Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, like most things, it's not one specific thing, but it's been a combination of the two. They ran the football really effectively in week one and didn't really need to throw the ball down the field. In week two, I don't really think it was a lot of time to do that. I thought that the Chargers' defensive line really dominated Kansas City, so I don't think it was a time to really challenge the Chargers down the field.
Absolutely. And switching over to the other side here, you mentioned the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, earlier there. Who do you think are some of the primary tone setters on the defense outside of him?
I would say that it's three people with the Kansas City Chiefs. I would say number one, as we talked about, is Tyrann Mathieu. I'd say number two is Frank Clark. We'll see if he plays. He's had this weird stomach issue for the last season and a half, so we're not really sure if he's going to play in this. We'll find out on Thursday whenever Reed and Mahomes talk, sort of a preparation for the week because it's on Thursday. And Chris Jones. Chris Jones is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I would say those three. They also have a rookie corner, L'Jarius Sneed. I've been calling him L'Jarius.
Had that interception, right?
Yeah, he's been an absolute diamond in the rough. He was a third, fourth round guy on Louisiana Tech. He's been one of the best corners in the league. Like, it's not just he's been good for the Chiefs. Like, put his numbers so far up against any corner in the league, and I think they'll be pretty favorable. He's been a diamond in the rough. As we were talking about, I mean, the Chiefs' cornerback group is pretty banged up. Like, right now, you know, NFL fans will not know who their cornerbacks are. You have L'Jarius Sneed, Rashad Fenton is a corner. They play a lot of Juan Thornhill, who's their safety coming off an ACL tear. Tyrann Mathieu plays a lot of corner as well. They have a Bo Peep Keys, who they drafted out of Tulsa. Like, it's a real who's who right now at corner if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. And Keenan Allen had a good day, didn't have a great day against Kansas City, but had a good day. That's one place that I think that Baltimore can maybe expose, especially with that play action. You got Mark Andrews over the top, or you got somebody like Hollywood Brown, who's, you know, one of the nice dynamic young wide receivers in the NFL. That's one of the places I think Baltimore can have an advantage.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at having an advantage, I mean, the Chargers, they were able to move the ball a little bit on this unit last week. What would you attribute that to? Do you think it's sort of due to Herbert kind of getting in there and at the last minute as a sort of fluky starter? What do you think some things you would point to are?
I think that first drive definitely was. If you go back and watch it, I mean, that first drive was easy from the Chargers, where it was kind of like, all right, they got to sell a little bit. Like, we talked a little bit about the Chiefs starting slow. They do that sometimes defensively too. I've made this point on my show. I don't need the Chiefs defense to be great. Like, their offense is good enough, and your expectation is the Chiefs should expect to score at least 30 every single time they go out and play. And if they don't score 30, they should feel like they did something wrong. Like, they left points on the board. So all you need the defense to do is to consistently hold teams under 27 points. That's all you need them to do. If they can do that, the Chiefs are going to win 14 games this year and be the favorite heading into the playoffs. To me, that's all you really need the defense to do, where, excuse me, the Chargers scored 14 points in the first half. No, they only scored 6 in the second half in overtime, where they really settled in defensively in the second half, and they held the game close enough, which allowed Mahomes and the offense to eventually break through and make the one or two plays to go out there and win. But you don't win that game without the defense. The Chargers had first and goal from 4 late in that game. The Chiefs stopped them. They then kicked the field goal, and then that led to the Chiefs kicking the field goal to go tie it up, to send it to overtime. And then obviously we know what happened in OT.
Right. And looking at the Ravens offense versus this D, I'm really fascinated by what I've seen from them so far, because you've got that first game where it's just Lamar dropping back, being surgical against the Browns, a lot of pocket passing. Then you go over to Houston, and it's sort of bullying the Texans with this rushing attack, and Mark Ingram taking a wildcat snap to basically ice the game. Knowing what you know through these first 2 games about the Ravens offense, how would you choose to attack the Chiefs defense in this one? I know you kind of already hit on it a little bit, but maybe still.
Yeah, no, you're good. I would run the football. I think the Ravens win this game if you're running the ball between 35 and 45 times. That's how the Ravens want to play. If you think back the first time these two teams played, when I actually think Baltimore outplayed Kansas City. Just Patrick Mahomes made a play late. Remember that fourth down play, that big play to Tyreek Hill, where that just flipped the course of the game. Like, I thought Baltimore played them really well. They ran the ball 40 times in there, where I said this today on my radio show. This is one of those styles makes fights, you know, where Kansas City has a certain style that they want to play. If they get you to play their game, where if Lamar Jackson is throwing the ball 30 or 40 times, it's probably not a game that they win. So I looked the stat up today. The Ravens are 3-2 whenever Lamar throws the ball more than 30 times. They are 14-0 when he runs the ball at least for 70 yards. If you want to extrapolate out to 50 yards, they're 17-2. So when he's running the football effectively, and they haven't lost many games since he's been a starter, but if he runs the football effectively for 70 yards, you're just not beating him because he's going and he's in rhythm, and it also just opens up so much when it comes to the play action. And again, as I said earlier, the Chiefs, they just don't tackle well. The linebacker core on this team is by far and away the weakest unit on the team, and that's a place where you can exploit. Another stat I'll throw at you is last year, Kansas City gave up 960 yards to running backs last year. So this is somewhere where J.K. Dobbins could eat out of the backfield, somewhere like Mark Ingram throwing it to him out of the backfield, and Gus Edwards can throw it out of the backfield. That's how I'd attack the Chiefs defensively.
Cool. So I'm already kind of setting you on the path here. So this is a Monday Night Football game. ESPN's going to have that weird graphic of keys to the game or whatever for the Ravens. If you had to name 3 bullet points for how they win this game, what do you think it would be?
Get pressure with your front four. I think that's the only way to really slow the Chiefs down defensively. You got to do that. I would say you need to control the tempo. Last year in the matchup between the Chiefs and the Ravens, you remember the Ravens were up heading into the second quarter, and the Chiefs absolutely blitzed them, where you then took away Mark Ingram, you took away the running threat, and then you forced Baltimore to play Kansas City's game, and that's not how you beat them. So I think it's controlling the line of scrimmage. I think it's running the football effectively. And this is one thing, too, that we haven't really talked about. I'm really curious to see what happens with Marcus Peters and sort of his emotions. I was just watching this the I Hate Christian Laettner documentary on ESPN.
It's a great documentary.
And yeah, it's really good. And Coach K made a point in there where he was like, a fire can either give you heat or it can burn down the house. Where you've seen enough Marcus Peters could have 2 interceptions in this game, and I wouldn't be shocked. He also could give up 6 catches for 152 yards, and Tyreek Hill has an absolute field day where Kansas City turns his emotion and his aggressiveness against you. I think that Baltimore matches up defensively about as well against Kansas City as any team in the NFL. I'm actually picking Baltimore to win this game, and I'm sure we'll get into why I'm picking Baltimore to win this game. But, yeah, I think Baltimore matches up really well with Kansas City.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, man. The last thing we had for you was a little score prediction. Who do you think is going to win and why?
I think 34-31 Baltimore. I think that this is one of those games where I think Baltimore just wants the game more. I think it's more validation for Baltimore. Lamar was talking really big picture stuff of, hey, I've won MVP, I've done all this stuff, but I got to catch up to Mahomes, I got to do this. So I think it just means more, but I'm also not really sure how much it matters. I make this comparison on my radio show. I look at this like a November college basketball game. You know how early in the season, Kentucky plays Duke, and it's a really fun game, and we try to take these big conclusions on what it means.
It's in Hawaii or something. It's what's going on?
Yeah, but it doesn't really mean anything because we know these two teams are going to be better later on in the season. I can say this almost confidently. Whatever team Kansas City is in week 3, they will be a better team by week 11. I would have guessed Baltimore is going to be the exact same way, and they've played fantastic, but you watch them closer. There's some things you think Baltimore could tighten up a little bit and be sharper at, where to me, this is just a really good early season test. I would feel very differently if this was like a week 11 game where one team was week, 10-1 and the other team was 9-2. It'd be a much different scenario, but we all knew with no preseason sort of easing your way into it, it was just going to be a very different vibe. There's no fans in there. Who knows what fans are going to look like in January? I'm taking this game as who's playing better right now, whose strengths line up better with the other team's weakness. And with the way that Baltimore just seems a little bit sharper to me, with the way that they're running the football, the way the Chiefs are tackling, I think Baltimore wins this football game. Wouldn't be obviously surprised if Kansas City wins this game. It is a coin flip, 50-50 game. I think if these two teams play 10 times, I think both of them win 5 apiece. I just think in this game, I think Baltimore finally gets theirs. It's sort of validation for what they've done in the regular season. But Baltimore is going to always have to answer, well, what did you do in the postseason? Where they're in the same place that Patrick Mahomes was after the AFC Championship game. Hey, you've done all the cool stuff. You've been on the cover of Madden. You're cool with LeBron. You're the MVP. You got the hair. You are a celebrity. I would say at this point, there's no doubt in my mind that Lamar Jackson is a superstar in the NFL. Superstars win playoff games. Superstars have the ability to elevate not only the play of themselves, but the play around him. And the last time that we all really focused in on Lamar Jackson, he did not look like a superstar in that game against the Tennessee Titans. So I think this is a validation, prove-it game more for Baltimore than for Kansas City because they proved it. So 34-31 Baltimore.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to be picking the same thing. Spoilers to everybody for, a little handshake coin flip win for the Ravens that has no bearing other than home field advantage maybe at the end of the season.
Yeah, and we were talking about that today on the show. And I mean, it's week 3 of the NFL season. I get why everybody's saying this could decide home field advantage. I mean, Baltimore has won, 14 consecutive regular season games, 15 consecutive? Like, they're not winning 31 of 32 regular season games. They're going to lose to Pittsburgh at some point. They'll split the home and home. Baltimore will get one. Pittsburgh will get one. They'll lose another game they're not supposed to lose because it's the NFL. These are 2-3-13, 14-2 teams. So, obviously, this game means a lot. But this year, home field advantage might not have the same importance that it typically has. Obviously, you want the bye. So to me, it's about who's playing better football toward the end of the season. And I don't really think this game gives us a very clear picture. I'm telling you, this is a November college basketball game. This is Duke, UCLA in the second week of the college basketball season. It is a fun game to watch. It is really enjoyable. It's up and down. But we know come March, it's a very different game. It's about how your team is positioned. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this game. I'm not going to get too high. I'm not going to get too low. I don't expect either team to blow each other out. I want both sides to come out of this game healthy, and I want to see a good, well-played game because they both got way bigger fish to fry than in week 3.
Great stuff, Carrington. You're a true pro. Thanks for your time hopping on here. And where can our people find you on the social medias?
Just give me a follow on Twitter at c.harrison. You can catch me on 610 Sports Radio in Kansas City. You can get that on the radio.com app. And I host the Harrison Experience on CBS Sports Radio every Saturday from 6 to 10 Eastern. So I appreciate you having me on, man. If you want to do one of these after the game is over and sort of recap it, I'm happy to do it, man. Thanks a lot for having me today.
Love to hear it, man. You have a great night.
You too, man. Thank you.
Bye.